Hello and welcome to the penultimate part in our series on how to cross step and nose ride. Thanks for all the comments, thanks for all the feedback. It's been a little while since the last one, so sorry for the delay for those of you who've been watching a lot. A couple of ideas with my last one. I was going to just do some drills for everyone related to all the different things that we've spoken about across the series. But also there seems to be, the most viewed and the most commented on is the first one. And I wanted to just offer you guys a chance for me to just clarify a few things and go through that one in a little bit more detail. Perhaps it's the most important one. So yeah, in the comments below, just let me know which you'd rather see. A video on some drills, or a video clarifying the first ones and going into a little bit more detail. Maybe I'll have time to do the both. But yeah, we're having a very busy season here in Playa Guiones, and we're doing lots of surf coaching down here. We've been doing some surf trips, and we've had some big group bookings as well. But yeah, without further ado, I'll introduce today's. Today we're going to be talking about spacing and steps, most particularly the number of steps required or the number of steps that we think you should be using in different scenarios and a little look into why. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the speed you need to get to the nose. Okay, at Playa Guiones, the wave at low tide breaks, stands up from nothing to white water, stands up from nothing, stands up, forms, gets steeper and breaks and turns into white water very quickly, but it also peels laterally very quickly. So two kind of speeds we're thinking about when we're talking about waves: how quickly a wave's going to break and how quickly it's going to peel. In these scenarios, I often find that I need to get to the nose very quickly, and of course taking 2 steps as opposed to 10, if they're the right space, is going to get me the quickest. Okay, so in this example, it's a low tide. You can see the section in front of me is all feathering, the wave's all a dark color, this is all starting to glisten and sparkle. So I'm thinking, all right, let's get to the nose as quick as I can. I'll pop up a little further forward on the board, admittedly, but in this one, I'm only going to take 1, 2 steps to the nose. Okay? So if I want to get there quickly, I'm thinking less steps. Now, mid-tide Playa Guiones, we'll go through all tides. It breaks a little slower, it peels a little slower, and this is the usual number of steps I'll see most people cross-stepping using. That's when usually I'll try and utilize 4 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So it wasn't the slowest wave ever, it wasn't the fastest wave ever, it was kind of in the middle in terms of the speed it was breaking and the speed it was peeling in. Whereas at high tide Guiones, I'm thinking I've got loads of time, I can take 6 steps. Now you might be thinking that it looks a little bit more graceful taking 6, you might not be, but I'll talk a little bit about that in one of the final parts of this. But first, let's look at a couple of issues that you can have if you're taking 2 steps. And this is perhaps one of the biggest issues I see with surfers who are coming to me and they're trying to learn to nose ride. They have this issue with using 2 steps and with using 4 steps. It's a spacing issue, okay? Because steps 1 and 2, okay, 1 was a medium-sized step, we'll call it, and the second was a big step. And I've missed the nose completely. But for me now to move my left foot in front of my right is a big transition of weight. It's going to be very difficult for me to hold the board in trim and keep equal pressure on my toe to stay at that altitude. So what I end up doing is stretching and shuffling and stretching, and I pretty much end up stuck in this cheetah 5 position. And I'll be honest, 2-3 years ago, this is where a lot of my nose riding took place. It was low, it was squat. Does it look great? Up to you whether it looks great or not. But it was very restrictive for me when I was trying to learn to hang 10, because it's a big transition of weight forwards on the board. This is an example of a 4-step forwards. 1, 2, 3, okay, and then 4. And again, I've missed the toes over the nose, so I end up stretching. It's very difficult. It doesn't look great. This one does not look great, no question. And I end up just getting stuck to the cheetah 5. No nose right there. So we want to be thinking about practicing steps. I haven't done 2 steps here. I don't really teach that. You'll see 2 steps used a lot by performance longboarders who are nose riding out of trim and facing directly towards the beach, where they're getting a quick tap on the nose and then they're running back and carrying on to do some more carving maneuvers. But 4 steps, I think, is great for everyone to practice this on dry land, just practicing spacing your steps on a surfboard so you can get all the way to the nose and you kind of know the number of steps you need, okay, and you know the sizes that you need, so that when it comes to that moment, it's not, oh, okay, this is my first time walking forwards and now I need to adjust my steps. You just kind of feel those steps out naturally. So it's a really good drill to practice on dry land. Okay. Again, bit of problem spacing, but there was another slight issue there. And we'll talk about this in a second. So first couple of steps, nice, small steps, I like the small steps, and then suddenly I need to do big steps and I get it all wrong. I do manage to reach and stretch. I also finish the nose ride right at the bottom of the wave. So that's where we start to talk about staying in trim. And it's easy to do in the different scenarios for different reasons, and it's difficult in the different scenarios for different reasons. If you have really graceful footsteps and if you have great ankle strength, ankle control, staying in trim and having smooth steps forwards to the nose and maintaining equal pressure on the inside rail as you move forwards looks great and comes fairly easy to you. Okay, Coach Harrison here has got great footwork, very smooth, silky surfer, great trim control as you move forwards and backwards on the board. Now, for me, a little bit clumsier, a little bit clumpier with my footsteps. You'll notice every time my right foot hits the surfboard, my board's just going to drop down in altitude a little bit more, and I end up losing altitude and falling halfway down the wave face, nearly halfway down the wave face, and having to recover. Okay, there's also maybe a little question of the section in front of me on that one, but I could have held the nose ride longer if I'd maintained my altitude. So, I've found 6 steps particularly useful for me with my clumpy footsteps because it helps me maintain trim. It helps me keep in trim control. And here's a couple of reasons why. The small steps forwards are small transitions of weight forwards and back on the board. The small steps forwards and the small steps back. It's a small transition of weight. So even if my foot does come off the toe slightly as I'm cross-stepping, as I'm in that cross-step, I'll get my foot planted again and it'll be close to the other foot that I can press back on my toes. Okay? Now, as well as that, you know, as we're thinking about this smooth transition of weight forwards and back, if our stance is wide, you can practice this, you can stand up wherever you are and make a really wide stance and then try and go up onto your toes. It's very, very difficult. If you put your feet right next to each other and go up onto your toes, it's very, very easy, okay? So, you know, we don't want to be surfing with our ankles touching each other, but generally speaking, if we're trimming, a narrower stance is actually helpful in maintaining inside rail pressure. So just watch how my board pretty much stays where I set that rail there, and I can get myself all the way up to the nose at the top of the wave, and I'm recovering there because it's closing out as opposed to because I've dropped low. So, have a think about these things. If we are in a scenario where we're trying to take 2 steps to the nose, it's because the wave is breaking and peeling fast. Okay, it's a steep section that's going to race. When we think back to that first tutorial we spoke about, we've got that apparent flow of water coming up the face, and in steeper and faster waves, it's strong. So even if you do lose a little bit of inside rail pressure, okay, you've got that speed coming up the wave face and you can really press hard on it in order to recover. So let's let that one play through. Most people don't like the idea of doing 2, and I don't actually try and do 2 that often. Most people will be doing 4, but what I would really urge you to do with 4 steps is make sure that you have those steps even when you're moving forwards and when you're moving back. Now, if you're lucky enough to have slow sections in front of you, don't be fooled. Okay, you might think that 2 or 4 steps could be good here, but it's going to be very difficult to maintain your trim unless you've got really smooth, silky footwork and really good trim control. I would always try and coach people into using 6 steps in slow waves. Okay, just because it's very difficult in a slower fat wave to maintain that trim, and every kind of footstep is really closely looked at by the wave, if you like. The other thing with 6 steps, I should definitely say this, is it makes spacing easy. It makes it a complete non-event, a thing you don't need to think about, because those steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, if they're all small, will end up landing you on the wave. End up landing you on the nose, I should say. What a way to finish. Okay, thanks a lot for listening. Hopefully you made it all the way through the end. If you did enjoy this, please share it with your friends, because like-minded people like like-minded things. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining us on this journey. If you've got any questions, please don't hesitate to just drop them in the comments below. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.